Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Now just 3 days ago, Nigeria was 57 as an independent nation, a country flowing with the proverbial milk and honey. Many, however, believe that the much talked about prosperity has been largely mismanaged due to factors like corruption, impunity, and ethnic allegiance, where most people first pledge allegiance to their ethnic groups and region before seeing themselves as Nigerians. More disturbing are the issues of overdependence on oil and non-saving culture that led the country's economy into recession, following the drop in the price of crude oil. Nigeria at present faces challenges of various agitations and restiveness, especially among the youths, but there are prospects of renewed hope. President Muhammadu Buhari, in his Independence Day broadcast, touched on some of these to include Nigeria getting out of recession technically, improved health and robust social investment programs, as well as the provision of a secured environment for development. Now, what next for Nigeria at 57? How well are the citizens keeping alive the vision of the founding fathers of a united and prosperous nation? These are some of the issues we'll be taking a look at tonight. But first, let's get to see this report by Timothy Yusuf.
Until the Boko Haram insurgency, Nigeria's longest and bloodiest conflict was the Nigerian Civil War since independence on the 1st of October 1960. At independence, Nigeria had a parliamentary system of government with 4 administrative regions: Northern, Eastern, Western, and Midwest, with premiers who have regional executive powers leading. Political crisis in the Western region, leading to violence and unrest as well as other grievances, led to bloodshed. Consequently, a group of young officers led by Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nsiogu plotted a coup in January 1966, which overthrew the civil government, killing 2 regional premiers, the Prime Minister, 8 other politicians, and 2 officers considered by the plotters as part of the problem. Flaws with the not-so-perfect coup made them to eventually surrender, and the most senior surviving military officer, General Ronsi, formed a federal military government that replaced the premiers with military governors, and parliament closed. The fact that majority of the coupists were from a particular region and most of the victims were from another region painted an ethical coloration that led to a counter-coup 6 months later. Reactions and violence that followed that development led to the breakdown of order. Eventually, the Eastern region declared independence from Nigeria to form the Republic of Biafra. That led to war, whose devastating effects are yet to be overcome.
We have every cause to thank God. Nigeria has remained as Nigeria since independence. I say so against the background of our experience. Barely 6 years after independence, the war came, the civil war. For many nations, that could have been the end. But Nigeria had a civil war, and it ended in 1970, and Nigeria remained together. I think what we have gained and what we have achieved as a nation is that we have remained together, irrespective of the various challenges that have threatened the unity and continued existence of Nigeria as a country. But what we have not achieved is, after 57 years, to achieve a nation we can call Nigeria.
Perhaps that explains why one of the principal actors in the civil war, General Yakubu Gowon, is now quick to caution against tendencies and action capable of taking the country back to the ugly experience.
My advice to these young people is, please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Past Nigeria leaders are also emphatic in their submissions that the country cannot afford to witness another civil war, stressing that diversity is Nigeria's strength.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
57 years down the ladder since Nigeria attained her independence, many believe that keeping Nigeria one is a task that must be done.
I grew up to meet a Nigeria that is united. There wasn't anything that our parents or history had tried to teach us to say that we had reasons to be in the position that we are today. There was this amalgamation of over 100 years that was celebrated a few years back in 2014. So that should be built upon. Independence is when we finally got the freedom and liberty from our leaders, but we had been together for over 100 years. I believe that we still need to do some work. Peace, yes.
A blessing that we are together, because I believe that's the will of God for us as a nation. And the only way I know that we can strengthen the bond of our unity and oneness is when we guarantee justice.
Nobody is marginalized. It is our mind. We need to now have a mindset. Let's change our mindset to believe Nigeria is not indivisible. It's a country that has come to stay, and we have to stay with it and believe in it, work on it, and together we'll be stronger.
I think it's very important that we remain as one united nation.
It is the consensus of many Nigerians that the country is better together than to be divided. The nation's huge population deposit should rather be an advantage than setting the people against each other on the basis of trivial issues. It is against this backdrop that the call for the unity of the country behoves on all and sundry as Nigeria journeys into her 58th independence anniversary and even beyond. Timothy Yusuf, NT News.
And that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests. I'd like to welcome to this program Representative Sani Zoro, who is chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on IDPs, Refugees, and Northeast Initiative. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Good evening. Thank you very much, sir.
We're also joined tonight by Dr. Uke Ikechukwu, Director, Development Academy, Leadership and Governance Consultant. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you.
Let me also welcome tonight Ramatu Elhatu Musa, former President of the National Council of Women's Societies. Good to have you join us.
Good evening, viewers.
We have also here tonight Johannes Toby Wujuola, who's a lawyer, a member, Abuja Global Shapers Community, and a youth leader. Johan, thanks for being here.
Good evening. Thank you.
And also joining us from our Lagos Network Center tonight is Olabi Idrujai. He's a lawyer, economist, and chairman of the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you and good evening.
That's right. As usual, we acquaint you with the procedure of this program. At the appropriate time, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on your screen. We advise you take advantage of them. However, for those who will be phoning in, we say this every Tuesday. When your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. Just reduce the volume. That's the way to avoid the hurlback. And the best way to know your call has been passed through is you'll see your name appear on screen. Once your name is on screen, it means your call is through to the studio. Just go right ahead with your question or comment. Keep it short. Go straight to the point. Do not bother about greetings. It takes a lot of time, and you know how erratic the phone lines can be. So just go straight to the point. Once your name appears on screen, it means you're on to the studio. Thank you once again for being with us tonight on NTA Tuesday Live. 57 years of Nigerian independence. That's what we're looking at. Can we celebrate? Some say we can. Some say, well, just a little. Some say, well, maybe we shouldn't be celebrating. But 57 years. What's the general perspective, and what can we say has been of hindrance to nationhood?
Is that my question?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. Well, let me try and say what I normally do when I participate in such a forum. First of all, I'm not giving to buck passing, trying to lay blames on groups or certain people. I would rather focus on solution provision. Let us look for solution to issues, because there will continue to be problems and issues and challenges. That's one. Otherwise, I can say most of the groups, individuals, and organizations that voice out concerns, you discover that they have justifications that they normally advance, but from their limited perspectives. Because everyone has a justification for crime, everyone has a justification for, quaking, and for begging for attention. Now let me say that the history of nation states, as far as I'm concerned, are all the same. They came about either as a result of conquests, or they were designed by some powers and said, this is a country, this is another nation, and that's it. Now, nation states also have lives. They can die, they can also survive. Take the example of India, 1947. In the next few years, it had broken into as many as 3 countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so on. In today's 21st century, there are these huge challenges that are knocking at the door as well. Kurdistan, just 2 weeks ago, they decided to conduct a referendum saying they want to have their own nation state out of Iraq. In Spain, we are also facing that challenge. Only last Sunday, a part of it decided to conduct a referendum and say, we want to go our own way. So these are challenges that are really facing every nation state, in the face. But if you were to look at these challenges, what are the consequences of what politicians or the elite want to do? In the United States, where you have 360 million people made up of Hispanics, blacks, and so many other groups, if they want to dismantle the nation state and create states, how many will you have? What of Africa, that has disparate ethnic and multicultural groups like Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, or India if you go to Asia and so on? So that is why I would rather at all times try to appeal to our sense of responsibility that while debating these issues, it will be very important not misguide people. It is very, very important to lay all the scenarios that are at interplay, so that if this is the option we want, for instance, those who are talking of de-amalgamation, there is nothing wrong with preaching for de-amalgamation, but you must know the consequence of what de-amalgamation will look like. Now, if you are saying we must continue as a country, you must also bring robust defense for such positions. Right. However, let me try and say that we at the National Assembly level, and I can say confidently that I'm speaking the minds of my colleagues, and honorable friends, that we know what the Constitution has vested in the institution of the National Assembly. For instance, upon resumption from the latest recess, the Speaker of the House made it abundantly clear, quoting the Constitution, that it is in the remit of the National Assembly to conduct constitutional alteration. Even today, we were able to pass well over 20 bills for third reading that will amend the Constitution. And the President, President Muhammadu Buhari, validated this point only on 1st of October when he said, it is the national and state houses of assembly that are the correct mechanisms for laying complaints, whether of agitation, for restructuring, or whatever. So we know we are responsible for this, and we're going to drive this agenda very well. We will allow Nigerians to ventilate their views, and except if certain politicians want to continue to exhibit double standards, they should know that at least we have our own rule book, we have the Constitution, and there is the place to go and debate. That is where to go and protest. The Parliament is the only mechanism that is open for us, except we are rooting for anarchy and chaos.
Right. Thank you so much. Quite an elaborate introduction to the issues at stake. But let's come to Dr. Ikechukwu. What is it that is hindering nationhood, which Nigerians so desire?
It's not just one factor, multifaceted, and many of them originating at different points in the history of the country. There was a unification that created Nigeria, but without creating Nigerians. That is a fundamental fact to note, that the amalgamation of the administrative structures for the Northern and Southern Protectorate that gave rise to Nigeria did not in itself lead to a unification of focus. And also it was following from that the interface between the various components became largely combative in competing for office at the federal level. So whatever problems we have today, we must have also a sense of history in order to come up to speed on one can solve them. When people ask what's the problem with Nigeria, the answer should be, at what point in the history of Nigeria? After amalgamation, the quarrel was whether there should be independence. Some parts of the country wanted it, some didn't. After independence, there was a question of how to manage the interplay of political forces. And that led to the emergence of the Midwest. Then there was a civil war. Then military rule came in, and progressively with each military regime, the structures of civil values was progressively eroded, such that we got to the point when from 1983 to 99, that was a total of 16 years, we had uninterrupted rule. So anybody born in 93 would have been an adolescent by that time. So we have a generation of Nigerians who have no ideas about consultation and decision making. And you also had within the period a deprofessionalization of some of the most intelligent officers of the armed forces who were given administrative positions, who functioned with 6 commissioners chosen by them, and anything they signed was law. So you had there, one, these political and administrative problems. Secondly, the progressive collapse of values. In all of these, constitutions were being rewritten, not following the original processes that required all the regions to come, sometimes to London or wherever, but by a team set up by the regime of the moment. And so you find that today, after 57 years, rather than say, oh, we Nigerians, you have a lot more people saying, we who are suffering in Nigeria. An unfortunate development that shouldn't be there, and one that must be managed appropriately. Because you find that many people mistake their protest against inequity for a desire for secession. Oh, I'm uncomfortable here. If you ask yourself, all the protests you see, assuming there was equity, assuming the youth have jobs, assuming the zones feel properly represented, you're not going to get anybody to go rioting with you. And we take an instance, one of the most prominent IPOB. If you recall, one of their major, most prominent outings was in Onitsha, where there were shootings. Why has another one not occurred there? Onitsha is predominantly a commercial setting. All those young boys and girls who came out, and some of whom were shot, had to close their shops. And when you close your shop once, close it the second day, by the third day, money is not coming in, and you're the one feeding yourself, the logic changes. And one fundamental fact we need to note is that if everybody is talking marginalization, inequity, I'm unhappy, and it begins from the furthest part of the north to the Atlantic Ocean, it means that the Nigerian state is not managing its interface properly as a people. And the conclusion to be drawn from that is quite simple. The desire to split is not only difficult, but constitutionally, if you ask me, quite frankly, impossible. The structures are not allowed for it. But why we need to be careful is that whereas the Constitution tells you how to do certain things, if you don't manage equity, if you don't manage inequity, what will happen is that people will take actions in spite of the Constitution.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And let's hear from you, Ramatu Lalatu Musa.
Thank you very much. We celebrated our birthday or our anniversary 3 days ago. We cannot talk of today without making reference to yesterday. Some years, many years back, we had this good, things to talk about, like the granite pyramid of Kano, the cotton of Zaria, the cocoa of the southwest, palm oil, and coal of the southeast, and there came the oil. Now, I believe the corrupt leadership started due to the discovery and exploration of oil and the neglect for the agri sector. Now, who is to blame? It's all and sundry. If you look at the DFID report on social corruption, it said that Nigerians are not intrinsically corrupt. That is to say that if the environment changes, corruption will reduce or virtually be eliminated. So we look at the situation, as we may put it, that was, today, that the situation is bad. Long ago, Nigerians think differently from the government. When you talk of budget, people think it's casual. Budgets are proposals. People need to know all this. They need to be educated. Now we are governed in such a way that there is no shared happiness. And lack of shared happiness and poverty is what has brought about all these agitations. Okay. Now, I cannot say this is the best way. We have to collectively discuss and decide which is the best way as a nation.
All right. Well, we have in our midst a youth leader, and certainly the youth of this country have a say in what we say they will eventually lead. What is this country going through that will be a threat to the future and to the aspirations of the now generation and the coming ones?
I think one of the biggest challenges that the country as it is presently constituted, there will be a challenge and will continue to be a challenge, and which is currently the challenge, is justice and equity, giving each man his due. We have a system that really isn't working. From education, which is supposed to groom and train the youths, so to say, from the toddlers to the teenagers to the teenage ages and to the 20s and 30s, the educational system doesn't even do well to produce well-trained, students at the end of the day. We have a situation where a student graduates from school, comes out, and the job search or the job hunt is fruitless. It also becomes a problem because the young person or the youth does not even have the employable skills to be given a job. Why? Bad training. He goes into the same society, struggles for everything, for a job, to feed himself. He now does not even have any aspirations beyond waking up in the morning and what do I eat? Waking up in the morning and where is my next source of bread going to come from? Dreams have been truncated, ambitions cut short, because the system has been wired in such a way that there is no fair distribution, fair allocation of resources to each and every person in society. And that creates an opposite of a sense of belonging, where people do not buy into the Nigeria of our dreams. People do not look at Nigeria as this is my Nigeria. People look at, you ask a young person if you are given a ticket to leave Nigeria, would you go? And each person would grab the ticket before even asking, before answering. And that is a function of the fact that Nigeria has not in itself been fair to the young, to the youths. The youths have always been told, you are the leaders of tomorrow. Tomorrow, as we all know, never comes. The youths are always encouraged, don't give up, be patient. But meanwhile, when they compare themselves, and Nigeria is sort of a presents an antithetical, view where a person in a young person in maybe his 20s is selling on the road, is hawking on the road, and another person, same young person in his 20s, is driving a Lexus car, side by side. So we present a strong society of inequalities, where a certain group of people cannot even aspire. The average Nigerian who doesn't have any parents, who are well-to-do, who have the connections, cannot aspire beyond his current setting environment, and that is a problem. That becomes a challenge for the youths. The youths that, as we have it today, cannot dream, cannot aspire, cannot have ambitions that are wild but yet attainable. All they want to do is eat and just survive.
All right. At this point, we'll go over to our Lagos Network Center, where we have Senator Olabi Durojai, and you've had the benefit of listening to the contributions from Abuja here. And so let's hear what you have to say about 57 years of Nigeria's independence and, of course, those factors that have seriously threatened nationhood.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, I would say in every situation, we have room to say thank God, because it could be worse. We thank God. While it is not very good, not as good as it ought to be, certainly it's not the worst that could happen that has been happening to us. We still need to have that faith to solve the problems ourselves by identifying the problems and sincerely and honestly and boldly taking them in our stride and find solutions to them. It's frightening when we hear the younger generation, like the gentleman who spoke last, just before me, said, it appears tomorrow will never come. Let me assure him, nobody can prevent tomorrow from coming except God himself. And I don't think he intends to do so. He has never done it before. There's always a tomorrow. Let the youth not give away hope on Nigeria. But it's a dangerous situation if our youth feel there's no future for them, because we wouldn't like a bad history to repeat itself. That was the prelude to the French Revolution of the second half of the 18th century, when the people went into rioting and all that followed. We don't want a disruptive order of society. And the way to prevent it is to dialogue. Let's come together and reason. The Almighty God, who has power to do everything and did everything by proclamation in creation, when it came to the sixth day, he consulted. Come, let us create man in our own image. He could have just said, as he said, let there be light, and there was light. Let there be water separated from land, and let land emerge from water, and others, and everything by proclamation happened. He changed the pattern and on the sixth day by saying, come, let us create man in our own image. That's consultation. If God consults, who are we? Why should we be arrogant and defiant by refusing to consult? The first gentleman who spoke, the honorable gentleman, talked of the National Assembly as the only framework for making constitution. That's a slight difference I want to point out to him. Making constitution is a ballgame different entirely from municipal laws from day-to-day routine legislative exercises. The Constitution is the ground norm, the foundation of any organized society, because the three arms of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary, they all derive their powers and functions and duties, their ups and downs, the limits they could go by the provision of the Constitution. If the National Assembly were to sit down trying to make the Constitution, they will not do anything other than that in the 4 years of term of our organization. It's a Constituent Assembly, a body set up purposely to prescribe a constitution that can handle the drafting of a constitution, which will prescribe what the other functions of this will do. What will come to the National Assembly in the finals after a referendum, when the question is due to a yes or no situation, is the normal processing, first reading, second reading, committee, and the final assent or concept, because the president of the country must still sign before it can become a constitution. That is the routine flourishing it, but the real making of it should be by a constituent organization. We've had them before. I served in one before, the 1988-89 Constituent Assembly, set up by General Ibrahim Babangida. Unfortunately, that constitution never saw the light of day, but certainly it could have still been more preferable to the 1999 Constitution, which was not the making of elected representatives, including nominated representatives of the government. That's my intake at this stage.
Okay, Senator, thanks so much. We'll come back to you later on. But the phone lines are already open and people are raring to be part of this discussion. Our first caller is coming from Abba, and this is Kennedy on the line. Hello, Kennedy. Hello, Kennedy. Do we still have Kennedy on the line?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Go right ahead, yeah.
All right. My name is Kennedy Okoro from Aba. Yeah, I think the topic tonight is on the Nigeria for 57 years. That's good. So there is one question. I love what you guys were doing tonight and discussing about Independent Day. And that Independent Day calls for every one of us who are Nigerians. Every one of us are all Nigerians. And love the gentlemen that all of them have spoken very, very well. To start with, what are we celebrating in this country? That the country looks as if maybe some people are being marginalized, some people are being, living on top. There are some cabals ruling the country. Whereby in a country up to this very moment, at the age of 57 years, we can't even have a constant line, electricity. At 57 years, we can't even have good roads. And we have senators, we have governors, we have Mr. President that is there ruling us. And all these things can never be addressed on. What I'm talking about is this. Let me just give an instance from maybe a country like Ghana. Look at Ghana, probably having independence before us. Okay, let me go back to a place like Cotonou or Togo, with the people supplying them life, and they are celebrating. I could remember vividly as far back as 2 or 3 years ago when Ghana celebrated 1 year of no interruption on life. And this is the power area of a country, in an area whereby we must have to have a good industrialization. And nobody is talking about it, whereby we have people in that very area called so government that we cannot have a constant life, which is too bad. Stober, you have been there and you have been performing. For you, we don't have any issue. The other guy there, we don't have any issue. But what we are talking about is our senators, our governors, our House of Reps. None of them are addressing the ministers and the so-called ministers. To cut it short, I want to ask ourselves, what are we celebrating? Just like the young man that talked about separation and people are just agitating for probably they are being marginalized or what. If they are not, there is no way problems will come up. The youth, just like the young man said, yes, there is no problem. We all, I'm a youth. But I have my own future, but I don't depend on the government. We are struggling, and we must have to reach where every one of us will begin as much as God is alive. Unless our God is dead, that is where we can say there is no tomorrow. But all the same, Nigeria as of today is in a very big mess. All we need to do is to address the issue, even if the IPOB, even if it's other people that they are trying to talk about, they are being marginalized, like the address of the SSS that happened on the other time, how many of the Southerners we are being taken, how many of the Easterners. My brother, you people should know that this country, there are people that are ruling the country, and they believe that they are the people that are ruling the country, which is bad. If Nigeria is one, you people give an instance, let me take an instance from the United States that came up from probably the Portuguese, the English, the Germans, and all the rest of them, even the Jews that are there. And you see how perfect, because they have a clean mind. In Nigeria, we don't have clean mind. If a ruler, if Mr. So-called president, that is our president, I'm sorry to use that word, so-called Mr. President, if he has a clean mind for this very country, he must have to address issues. As a father of a nation, all you need to do, young man, come, let us find out your problem. Yoruba, come, let us find out your problem. Hausa, come, let us find out your problem. The minorities, come, let us find out your problem. And this problem will be solved. If this person happens to vomit out his own problem, you say, okay, is that the problem? Is that why Nigeria should not keep on going? If Nigeria cannot go, why are we one? Yes, let's forget about what what they did in 1914 or whatever. Let's just forget that Nigeria is now one. And for Nigeria to break is going to be bad. And as much as I'm concerned, because I believe that the Igbos are the true Nigerians, not even any other, because there is no outer man that has an investment in the East.
All right,
no
Kennedy.
that has an investment.
Yes, Kennedy, we said you should keep your go straight to the point and keep it short, so that there are so many people who want to get on this platform, and we believe that you have made your point. And so, just again, for those who are calling in, let's just reiterate that just try and keep it short, straight to the point. So many other people want to get on this platform as well. That's the only way that we can go around. But if we come back to the studio, and let's come to you, Representative Sani Zoro. You did say, of course, that the National Assembly provides a platform for people to bring their complaints, to discuss the issues, to make suggestions on the way forward. How do you respond to the feeling of some who say that they are the minority, and because of the way the assembly is constituted, their voices may never carry?
That's right. I want to say straight away that that cannot be true. But before then, let me seize the opportunity to clarify on what the distinguished Senator Olabi Durojaya has said in direct reference to what I have said. I think there is absolutely no contradiction in what I have said regarding the National Assembly as an institution that the Constitution has charged to do constitutional alteration. And I think I didn't talk about constitution making, but definitely I know that a Constituent Assembly, not only the one he referred to, but way back in 1978, I was politically conscious enough to know that that Constituent Assembly drafted the Constitution under the leadership of the late Chief Rotimi Williams, for instance. But, sir, may I say, I should use, if I may, let me use this forum to say that we should avoid the mistake we made in 2014 during the National Conference. Some arguments were presented in this regard that gave the then President Goodluck Jonathan the confidence to constitute the National Conference against certain observations that turned out to be valid. First, that the Constitution, this grand norm we are talking about, has no provision whatsoever for a referendum. And therefore, the outcome of the National Conference cannot be subjected to a referendum. Secondly, Mr. President then was advised that he should create a constituent assembly for the purpose of constitution making. But instead, he followed the advice of those who ended up handpicking people in a lopsided manner, in a manner that was despicable, a manner that was not calculated to promote the exercise that the administration said it wanted to do. And what happened? At the end of it, it was money badly spent. Now, let me say that as far as I'm concerned, the worries expressed by the youngest gentleman among us, yes, it should be a major source of worry for any nation that has this sort of percentage of its useful population stranded. But I also want to say that Nigeria is a balanced federation as far as I'm concerned. Each state of the federation has a state house of assembly. Each state of the federation has local governments with representatives. The constitution has provision for appointment of ministers from each state of the federation, and that's what prevails. So it is not true when some people cook up stories and say a section of a particular country has more ministers than others. These are untruth. These are things that cannot be verified. These are not true. Second, it appears to me like a recurrent decimal. Every 10 years, every 7 years or so, there will be a national issue that will threaten the corporate existence of Nigeria. Be it June 12 election that also provoked such agitations, or in this particular case, the triumph of President Muhammadu Buhari, which has led to the trouncing for the first time in our democracy, of a party that is in power. The people who are agitating for all these kind of things, we can also clearly bring out the reasons why they are doing this is because that section or faction of the elite has also lost power. It's painful to lose power, and some people's reaction when they lose power can be very, very extreme, and that's what we are actually witnessing. Now, I must also say that from the perspective of people who are not talking, I also share in the belief, I also share the conviction that the first section of the Nigerian elite that opened its gate of hell was in 1966. Whether we blame the military institution or a section of the military that decided to murder 19 officers, the political and military elite of a particular section of the country, and did not touch other sections of the country, and they are being referred to as revolutionaries, while what they said about these leaders were mere fabrications and lies. And we do not want to admit that that was actually the beginning of our crisis. This cannot be true.
Okay.
And let me also say, I still have confidence that even if it is the military that spearheaded the drafting of the 1999 Constitution as amended, this is the only ground norm. Yes, we can have agitations, we can even decide to act outside of the constitutional framework, like the distinguished Senator Duro Jaya has said. Yes, we have that right. And I have also given examples about how in other countries it is done. But we must be able to appreciate the consequences of our actions and to guide ourselves rightly.
All right, we go back to the phones. We have calling in from Lagos, Adiwali. I hope Adiwali is still on the line. Is Adiwali still on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I believe that we have a lot of problems. Activation. I would not like to start recounting all the manifold problems we are facing activation at the moment. My own, we need to actually we need a robust set of solutions. tackling our present climate situation. We need to use something called the root cause analysis to find out what is up with the Nigerian state. We need to go back to history and find out when and how certain things went wrong. You see, there is a problem in every situation. I mean, there is a solution to every problem. And the solution to every problem lies in the root of that problem. What I'm just doing is just to try to solve the problem as it's very, very heavy. Just trying to create the symptoms of an illness or an ailment without moving down the root cause or cause of such problems. Let me start from 1914. When those began amalgamated the southern part and the northern part of the Nigeria together. The question is, did he consult anybody before he did that? How did he come about that? Obviously, he was trying to score a shield, which I thought a shield political score to his own master at that time. And then he wanted his master to know that, oh, I'm doing something as a governor general, managing his own state colony then. Without looking at disparities, at cultural differences. And then just went ahead to brought us together. And that was inconvenient between the northern part and the southern part. And then we carried this on the time of the independence. Unfortunately, our then leader did not ask much questions about that inconvenient marriage. We may ask questions. So for me, as a nation, we should sit down and ask ourselves this serious question. Why are we together in the first place? If you have the wrong husband and the wrong wife coming together to marry, problem in that marriage, what do you think?
Okay.
It is the husband that is punishing the woman every time, or it is the woman that is waking up in the house all the time. What do? The union can be dissolved. Even the law will not permit that. So for me, we need to go back to the root cause of our problem.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much, Adewale. Thank you. Right. Let's come back to the studio here, Dr. Okeike. Some say the divisions are just too many. They say that the is so deep that it's virtually impossible to resolve these issues because they're so deeply rooted. On the other hand, some people say the amazing thing about it is we always look at the center, the national configuration, and say all these things. But in actual fact, all the complaints are also replicated in, for instance, the states, among ethnic groups, even among people who are from the same ethnic backgrounds. That these things we complain about at the national level are also replicated there. So what is the problem?
Well, let's take it probably coming from a point Senator Duro-Jaye raised and a reaction to it. A few facts we must agree on. Number one, the National Assembly has the power to amend provisions of the Constitution. There's no controversy about that. And as to whether or not it's the only platform for that conversation is another matter. Proposals can come to it, but I don't suppose anybody or any other institution can do that. But to the substantive issue you raised, let's begin with the crisis of justice and equity. Told that we have a balanced federation, that Nigerians are happy. True. Each state has the same number of senators, but not the same number of House of Reps members, and not the same number of local governments. And local governments are platforms for sharing revenue. So if from your family, you have a family of 8, and you can bring 3 plates to the village square, another family of 8 brings 1 plate to the village square, that's inequity. And it's a fact of life. So part of the issue is when they say, first of all, I don't agree it's unresolvable. It can be resolved. The question is whether there will be the sincerity of purpose to do it. Now the Constitution as it is, we are told, is sacrosanct. It didn't drop from heaven. Part of the provisions, for instance, for state creation is landmass. That was a decision. Supposing we had used tree mass, there are sections of the country that have more trees. Or use water mass, but yes, I'll probably be 8 states. Or use air mass, the more arid areas will have fewer states. The point I'm making is not intended to contest any of this, but to state that the pretense that the values by which we live today as a nation are red lines that nobody should cross remains a pretense. And so as long as people feel they can't talk about it, for so long would they think they have a lot to say. I think the mistake is in preventing people not being called together. Take, for instance, all the call for restructuring. It's so strong, politicians are making mileage as elections are approaching. People are trying to gain mileage among their people by talking about it. But what do they mean? For some, it is confederation. For some, it is a change in the revenue allocation formula. For others, it's a call for regional governments. Each group has a totally different notion of restructuring. And the federal government, and probably the National Assembly, is missing the opportunity to blow their cover. Namely, we agree with there should be restructuring. There's a lot of inequity on the land. Kindly sit together and let's know what you're talking about. There will never be a consensus. Now, to come back to the issue of resolvability or not, you cannot resolve the issues on the table by any directive, by deploying soldiers, by the way, who are being overstretched because there's Boko Haram going on. That resolution can come. Yes, there's National Assembly, but there are also state assemblies. There are local governments. There are town unions. Nigerians are not in the National Assembly or in Abuja. They're in their respective places. And the political structure we've evolved is such that we keep pretending that our problem is coming from Abuja. Nobody questions his local government chairman. Nobody thinks the governor has questions to answer, but everybody will talk about how Buhari is killing them. And they don't ask the local government, whom they knew that 2 years ago he didn't have a car, but now has 4 cars. We understand that this local government gets 200 million every month. What happens to it? Those who should ask do not. Traditional rulers, town union presidents, prominent people in the society, title holders, youth leaders, who then become their praise singers. So that the rot is from the top down. But in all of this too, where there is leadership, the disinclination to misbehave will become higher. That standard paradigm of unacceptable minimum, rules of engagement for people in public office is not emerging from the political elite or from the bulk of the political elite. So to that extent, we have renegade messiahs, each person with his own following, each person with a perfect idea of how Nigeria can be saved, and all of them talking across purposes.
All right, let's go back to the phones. From Bauchi, we have Collins. Collins, thank you for staying online. Hello, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello? Well, thank you, sir.
Collins, are you still there? Go ahead.
Hearing me? Hello, you are hearing me? Hello?
Collins?
Yeah, I am watching you on the television. Are you hearing me? Hello?
You have to move forward.
No, yeah, my contribution is this. My contribution is this. Hello, sir.
Collins, you're on already, so just go ahead with your contribution.
Let me speak on.
And speak into your phone, please, because you're sounding as if you're miles away from your phone.
No, I am with my phone. I'm watching the television.
Right, now we can hear you. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. If you're hearing me now, I want to make this contribution, if you are hearing me. everybody is talking to me as a person. What is the problem of Nigeria is indoctrination. These indoctrination are created by politicians. When you want to win election, if you don't use tribal, you will use religion. If you don't use religion, you use whatever power you have. And send the youth to keep on killing themselves. And when you come and stay and talk, you don't remember history. There is no way we can walk without history. We must know yesterday, to understand yesterday, know today and predict tomorrow. When I was a youth, there's nothing like Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, we are all Nigerians. I was 6 years when Nigeria, and we went like that. I was born and brought up in the north. I'm an Igbo man. We had no Christianity, religion, Muslim. Everybody was doing his religion and we're living together. Whether you want to restructure today, within that restructure, there will be restructure. If you want to tell ourselves the truth, those people who indoctrinated youth to all this wahala, IPOB, Ariwa youth, Boko Haram, they are all made by politicians. If we want Nigeria to be together, we should again re-indoctrinate youth into knowing that we are one Nigeria. And that's why we pull our resources together. Use the strength of Nigerians together. Make use to know that every Nigeria is a brother to one another. Nigeria will be a peaceful place. We will harness our resources. Even the politicians now are selling our bushes, mining and everything to the white. Chinese come, you give him. Britain come, you give him. Can we even see the kind of education British left for us? Can we see how British left us? If we cannot hit the nail on the head, let us be there blabbing and looking for who has fault. Buhari has no fault. Jonathan has no fault. Nobody has fault. It's the indoctrination that is our problem in this country.
All right.
Thank you all, and I say good night.
Right. Thank you very much, Collins. Well, at this point, we'll take a short break. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back in just a moment.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, so plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Minister of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Well, we took out the cameras and we decided to talk to the citizens to hear their views. Let's sit back and see what Nigerians have to say.
The problem we had in the past is that we over-dependent on oil. And because of that, you see so many things are not moving the way it's supposed to be. But I am very, very happy that the present administration, they are now looking inward. We are now investing heavily on agriculture. With that, we are going to come back to our lost glory.
At 57, I would say Nigeria, the government have been able to work on the terrorism, and the government have been able to tackle corruption also. So in these two areas, I've been able to, I can commend the government. President, or the government rather in general, should improve on his empowerment. Mostly the youth having these challenges of work, they don't have anything doing, and I believe if the government can work on this, try to empower the youth to get something doing, at least this can even reduce the rate of crime or terrorism.
We've gone a long way, but there is still more to be done as a country and as a nation. I believe that as Nigerians, we've all been in the struggle, but you know, we still need to do more. In terms of being one, we should all see ourselves first as Nigerian before an Igbo man or a Yoruba man or an Hausa man. That is what we should uphold first. Because those days growing up, you just see yourselves as a Nigerian.
Fighting corruption has been so fantastic in the country. We can see now that civil servants in particular, they are conscious now in terms of squandering money, embezzling money. And now you will see that there is no flamboyant and unnecessary spending all around.
We are 57. We are still not united as we ought to, politically and economically. So our advice, or my own advice to the government is that it should be more people-oriented.
At 57, we are still living one as a country. So to me, it's an achievement. We've had countries who had independence and they never lived up to these years, and they went into several wars and they are not together. We had one, and it was an error not to be re-established again in life.
I wouldn't like to say that we are there yet, but we are trying to get there. Nigeria at 57, I thought we should have achieved a lot better in virtually every facet of human endeavor, be it health, be it education, be it whatever. We ought to be far better than what we are now. There is no point to say that Nigeria at the moment, we cannot boast of so many manufacturing industries. We have rather become a consumer nation rather than a productive nation.
I have no other country but this one. So whatsoever is going on in the country, I'm a Nigerian, and I'm proud to say I'm proud to be a Nigerian. Congratulations, Nigeria at 57.
Well,
As for me, I wish us well, but
we have all the cause to celebrate. But Nigeria, God is with us. God is taking care of us. So there's all cause to celebrate the independence for God delivering us from slavery, from slave trade. And we are up to now 57 years of independence. So we have every cause to celebrate, no matter what we are facing in Nigeria. Okay. My fellow Nigerians, we should not be troublemaker. We should not involve ourselves in destroying others' life, because we cannot even create an ant. So we should run away from violence, from wickedness, from killing, and also wanting us to separate. We cannot separate. We are together. Because you have an eye now, you not say, this eye, I don't want you. We are one, and one body full of many members. That is Nigeria. We will not separate in Jesus' name.
The views of Nigerians on the country at 57 years of independence, there would seem to be a consensus that this is a country that is yet to achieve its potential. You heard so many of them saying, look, yes, we've gone this far, but it could have been better. We have had people blame the political elite. We've had people say the leaders have not led very well. What can the people do to put in those leaders that they say should lead well? Do they not have the opportunity? Who puts the leaders there?
Yes. Thank you very much. Before I touch on what we can do to the leaders, just as the youth have been neglected to a great extent, so women are also not carried along. Our legislators missed it when they did not pass the affirmative action. I said it the other time, they missed it. And it's a big mistake. From creation of man, God proved to us that we are partners in progress. We are not rubbing shoulders with the men, but we have the right to also contribute our own quota. Look at the number of men at the National Assembly. How many women are there? How can our bills be passed? What is the fear in the men that they cannot pass the affirmative action when Nigeria signed this document in 1995? We had prominent women like Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, Honorable Margaret Ekpo, Hajia Gambo Sawaba, who was not even educated but well respected and carried along in this country. Until tomorrow, her presence is, absence is not felt. You understand? We have named them. Women must be carried along in the hem of affairs of this country. Women and the youth. Now, because if we happen to have any crisis situation now, women and the children are always at the receiving end. Now, why our leaders, where have they gone wrong? Our leaders travel helter and skelter. It is there in the history of this world. Nigerians are the greatest travelers. Is it for the escort we travel, or we go there to see things that will bring back to the country? With many leaders years back and even now have traveled to China, to Beijing, to wherever, and nothing is happening. We have to ask ourselves, what is the problem? What are all these numerous journeys for? If they go there to see what is happening, they should bring, like this ordinary veil, we have to import. We can't even produce these things in our country. We have killed our industries. If you go to Ondo, Ondo is very rich. They have bitumen there that was discovered in the 1980s, 18 something. The only glass sand industry that was established, they killed it. And they are there carrying the glass sand free, doing their own thing. The cocoa that we knew heard of when we were children is still as it were. When they export it, they now produce cocoa butter pomade. We happily buy these things. Something is wrong. Our leaders We must all, as Nigerians, go back to the drawing board. Do we have national plan? Why are we not following it? Now, the leadership years back and even now is like a masquerade, and the followers have to follow it. Okay, if the followers within that system are following it, what of people living with disabilities? What of the voiceless people down there? There is need for us to start calling back our electorates for non-performance, non-accountability and transparency. We don't have to blame the president alone. Presidents past and present, we are part of the problem. We are all part of the problem. And I agree with the other person who contributed that there is a lot of indoctrination. It's true. Whatever the electors are told, they believe it. Like sometimes some youth can be brought from another part of the country to Abuja and say this is how the North is. Have you ever been to Yobe? You've been to Katsina to see abject poverty? Complete poverty. And at times, you know, I want to see a Nigeria. We have been discussing the yesterday, today, what the tomorrow of Nigeria, where West African countries will come to Nigeria to school. I want to see a Nigeria where I will, you know, drive with my children and grandchildren, cross this country, and they will see the vegetation area in the south. Ah, Mama, why is this place so having a lot of trees? They ask a lot of questions. If children from the south come to the north and see people on camels, they will be, you know, overwhelmed. They will ask questions, and their knowledge will be widened. So something is wrong with us altogether. But we look at you know, the leaders, we always point fingers at the leaders because they say a leader is like a dustbin. All the rubbish have to be put there. You understand? So whether we like it or not, we must have this idea of continuity in governance at the local, state, and federal level.
Okay.
But you know what? We are great people.
All right.
Because having asked the colonial masters to leave, and on our own, we have been able to develop to this level. We say bravo.
All right. Ibadan is where we go to next. We have Emmanuel, who's on the line, who's been on the line for quite a while now. Emmanuel from Ibadan, hello. Emmanuel, are you with us? Hello, Emmanuel. Well, it would seem that Emmanuel maybe has some challenges. Maybe he can't hear us right. Okay. Well, do the youth feel they've been let down by the older generation? That's one side of it. And what role for the Nigerian youth? Because I've heard people say, are the youth just going to sit down and say, well, we don't have anything and we must look up to the older generation. If they can't do it, then we fold our hands and be despondent.
The older generation, from history, has, without mincing words, have not been altogether fair to the youth. We have a situation where leadership, as it currently is in Nigeria, is a recycling of the same old people. Before, it's like a pyramid. Before the young generation are able to climb up to that top there, it becomes an endless chase. There's a problem of accountability, the problem of transparency, where leadership, as it is constituted, is opaque. The younger generation cannot even, there's no grooming of young leaders, and that is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing in leadership in Nigeria, where a young person is identified based on his qualities, based on his intellectual prowess, and is groomed to play a role in national development. But it's the same recyclement of the same old people that we keep seeing. And at best, what we have is the children of the same people who are being recycled come back again to continue the whole game. The youths at this point have not, like I said, have not found anything to aspire to. They're cut short from the whole, from the leadership of the country. Then it now comes like your second question. What is the role of the youths? The role of the youths at this point in time is simply to hold government accountable and to continue to demand for what is due them. But the issue has always been the fact that the youths have not been making their demands through the right channels, through the right medium. Take, for instance, the whole conversation on restructuring, the conversation on, better allocation of resources and all. Many have not come to understand that it is not actually a thing of just merely chanting and singing on the road and protests, but there are constitutional means to which such issues can be addressed. There's the National Assembly, and there are so many issues that every day are dealt with at the National Assembly. Take, for instance, all the hearings. How many people attend it? How many youths attend the hearings? And most times these hearings affect the day-to-day activities of the youths. I know that there was a hearing on environment, the Committee on Environment, so to say, where NOSDRA, the amendment of the NOSDRA bill and also NSRA bill was put forward. And when you look at this, those bills are fundamental to the people of the Niger Delta, the young people in the Niger Delta who are actually agitating. Now, if they are not conscious of this development and these activities happening in the National Assembly, which is the only legitimate way, the only constitutionally recognized way in which their grievances can be fixed, then there's a disconnect. And one of it boils down to the fact that the big problem that we are facing is political education. Young people do not have an understanding of how governments work, how governance works. They don't have an understanding of politics in itself. Right. And there is the need to bridge this gap.
Okay. Let's go to the phones. We have Sani who's calling in from Abuja. Hello, Sani. Is Sani still with us?
Yes, I am.
Hello. Well, okay. Sani probably changed his mind. Well, we do have a Sani here in the studio. But let's go to Lagos in the meantime and speak to Senator Drujai and say, yes, we always identify the issues involved, the wrongs, the lack of equity. What are the concrete steps that can be taken to address these issues, to reverse the trend?
We should appreciate what we have and make the best use of them. In the history of this country, the 57 years together, in my own personal observation, we've never had it so good in terms of topmost hierarchy of our leadership. We have a man known to be militarily disciplined as head of state, and a vice president who is disciplined intellectually. This type of combination is not often, even in more advanced courses, you don't have it that good. People who have Spartan self-discipline and clean record of public accountability, then it is for us to follow the cue. We cannot default, as Shakespeare said, Caesar, in Shakespeare's book on Caesar. The fault is not in our SARS, it is in ourselves that we are underlings. The lady in the group, in this discussion, made similar references. That it is not just question of the leadership now. I think we have good leadership. Let's queue behind that leadership and do what they want us to do. Then you raise the question, where is the fault? How can we get good leaders? Nigeria voluntarily went out to put in a progressive government, the first time ever. And the government is trying. It's for us now to cooperate. How do we do it? It's through education. Education and change the mantra, the change of our thinking and our orientation. If we believe that we can do it, definitely we do it. That's what the philosophy Obama used to win the election, and he performed. And I know God made no mistake in creating Nigeria. I mean, making us the people who have come together to be Nigeria. An experiment that has lasted a whole century. On 1914 to the present day, 103 years of nationhood of Nigeria. I think we should try to make it work. I believe our size is a blessing to us. Our virility, our unique intellectual ability as a people. I attended an international conference recently in South Korea. Smallish people by way of physical appearance, very disciplined people. You can, and there's a country that Nigeria sent help to some 20, 30 years ago. You can see the achievement of these people. They work like ants. We must change our orientation to things. Again, reminds me of the lamentation of Oliver Goldsmith about the Industrial Revolution of 18th century in England. He said, wealth accumulates, but men decay. Wealth accumulates, but men decay. Ill fares the land, to hasten ills a prey. Where wealth accumulates, but men decay. Princes and laws may flourish or may fade, and etc. The relevant thing is we seem to chase after money, money, money all the time, forgetting there are certain basic values and virtues where the last generation, I mean, the aging generation, the generation that is passing on, the generation I belong to, was brought up on. Our parents taught us about the folklore stories. Hello, hello. At the end of every story, the omnibus question is asked, what has this story taught us? And you get answers. It has taught us to fear God, to respect the elders, to obey the law, to help our parents, and to work hard and be honest. That is how societal virtues and values were inculcated in us, even before going to the school. We went to missionary schools, only to be told the same principles. That's how we are able to emerge to have record of good transparency. For the youth, it's unfortunate, it's not like that. The gentleman who spoke for the youth forgot the fact that there's nothing that National Assembly has done to bar them from having access to National Assembly to participate. He said there have been public hearing. Nobody has been withheld from going to National Assembly to air their views about what the hardship of the youth are. But the youth, due to no fault of theirs, have not got the type of education that we, their parents, had. The type of discipline. parental discipline that we were subject to. Our own generation failed to impose that on these younger people. So that makes it unfortunate. But I said, as I said before, the youth should not, because of that, lose hope. Let us all work that tomorrow will certainly be better if you have this change of mind. The government puts up the change mantra of this present government, and from time to time, NTA and other channels put it across. The change begins with me. Once you feel that quality of service is more important than the wealth you accumulate, serving the country, if you believe the oneness of this country and that the way we can achieve most is to remain together as one country and work out towards it. If there are things that make people feel like differing, let's listen to them. What are their grievances? And try to accommodate as much of it. That was the constitutional aspect that I referred to in my first intervention. You must listen to those who have grievances, but let them see the picture, the bigger and brighter picture, that Nigeria, by its size and location, geographical location, and the kindness of nature to us, no earthquake, no volcano, very virile, strong, physical and mentally balanced people. What else do we want God to do for us that He has not done for us? It's for us to make the better use of what we have. So, left to me, I still buy more on what the lady said. Let's come together, try to find out where the shoe pinches us, and make necessary corrections and follow the leadership. As the populace, the electorate, is they who have themselves to think again about what to do. When if you allow armed robbers or pen robbers and so on to win the election, what sort of law do you think they will make? It is for us to make that people who have record of transparency that we elect. It's when we have this change in mind for the betterness of our country that we get better. And I know we will, by the grace of God.
Well, let's come to the legislature now and find out what role the legislature has is played towards addressing the inequities that we talk about, towards addressing the issues of the youth, and certainly you would have, and women, of course.
Yes. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, let me say, I like very much what the distinguished Senator Durajai has said. It is on the spot. We share in this penetrating insight into what leadership is all about. South Korea, where he talked about, produced General Kim. And I also believe General Buhari can be the equivalent of our own General Kim. I also recognize that he and his vice, he and his deputy, they work as if it is the heart and the heartbeat. So all we need to do is also to discipline ourselves, follow what they ask us to do, and we will get there. That's one. Second, may I assure the past president of NCWS that we at the National Assembly, especially the House of Representatives, actually, we have not missed it on women. We fully subscribe and endorse the national gender agenda. In fact, in our own legislative agenda, we have our own gender agenda, which we have been following and executing religiously. I give you an example. Today, for instance, a female legislator was sworn in to replace a man who was declared, whose election was nullified by the Supreme Court. And the swearing in of that female legislator, I can assure you, attracted a standing ovation. We in the House of Representatives, for instance, whenever female legislators raise their hands, they are giving priority over over men. We give them priority when it comes to welfare as well as attention, and that's why you do not hear them complaining. I'm not sure if you have heard them complaining. No. Now we have even gone beyond that generally to make sure that we make in our own legislative agenda, we have made provisions that will attract more women into legislature. The second one, there is a need also to assure the youngest panelists here among us that we at the House of Representatives actually are the face of Nigeria's youthful population. And we also have a youth agenda within the context of the legislative agenda. Now, today, I can give you concrete examples of today. Today in the morning, there were representatives from a primary school in Lagos that came visiting. And this is a daily routine. They go to the gallery, and that is our own contribution to leadership recruitment. Now, today, the 30th issue, the 30th item on the order paper, if you, luckily I am with it over here at the studio, it has to do with call to reintroduce technical and vocational education and practical training to create employment. This is about youth. Now, every day, what we do substantially, if an analysis of what we discuss are anything to go by, you will discover to your amazement that 60 to 70% is actually forward-looking. Now, I give you some more examples. For instance, the constitutional alteration we are trying to do. We have lowered the age entry point into politics for those who will want to run for elections into national and state houses assembly, as well as governors. This is calculated to encourage the useful population into participating, and that sort of leadership grooming, you know, a recruitment planning that we're talking about. Secondly, when we say that there should be a provision for independent candidates to expand the political space, we also want to attract the youth, because it is possible for the youth by 2019, by our reckoning, first of all, to win as councillors. It is possible to win chairmanship elections. It is even possible to win state houses of assembly elections, or even national elections like into the House of Representatives for states such as Bayelsa, Kano, and some states that have one single local government as a federal constituency. Now, when we say there should be financial autonomy to local governments, we have the youth in mind. Except you free the local government system, decorrupt that system, you cannot have the youth optimizing their own potential and making sure that when they eventually get into leadership levels at that particular stage, they will be able to exercise all the gifts, all the natural endowments and so on, bring them to bear on development. Now, when we say the INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission, should be allowed to conduct elections in all the states of the Federation, not taking into account the argument of those who say, oh, we are a federation, therefore we must decongest and make sure that, yes, they are right. But if you go to the 1999 exercise, when INEC organized elections all over the country, you will discover that it was probably the most fair of all elections. So we want elections to be conducted in a manner that youth and all other Nigerians, by the way, can win elections fair and square. Now, when it comes to the autonomy for state houses of assembly, we are also thinking about the youth, that except you reform that system so that the legislature will truly be independent as prescribed in the Constitution, even if you were to come into governance as leaders, even if you were to be made automatic leaders, you will discover that you will not be able to function because the system is dysfunctional. Now, I want to assure you that, like distinguished Senator Duro Jaya has said, every day you go to the National Assembly, there is actually a participation of the youthful population. Only last year, the Speaker of the House of Representatives decidedly, as part of the legislative agenda, chose the leadership of the Nigerian Association, National Association of Nigerian Students from each of the universities. Not only the 48 public universities, but private universities to converge in Abuja. And for a whole week, he was engaging with them. What are the issues? What are the problems? Every now and then we are pursuing, like I said, religiously, things that will actually help us to project our positives. We in the National Assembly, I can assure you, as far as I'm concerned, we have more useful population in the House of Representatives than probably you have in other branches of government. That can be, it can be verified. And secondly, I also want to assure you, we have nothing but the interest of our useful population.
Okay.
And we will continue to be proactive because we are aware of these problems, and we will ensure that this is an opportunity, it's a God-given opportunity. Already a committee has been set up of the leadership of the House of Representatives to listen to these conversations, encourage these conversations, sit together with all those who are conversing for whatever points of view, ventilate them. The parliament is their house, they have the right to be heard and so on. And by the special grace of God, at the end of the exercise, we will be proud of what the National Assembly can do. Right. But that is when and only when the youthful population and all those who have conscience will support the 36 or so constitutional amendments that we have proposed, so that they will not be sabotaged at the state levels. We have seen this happen in the 6th and 7th, Assembly. We have seen how vigorously the National Assembly wanted to reform our system, but they were sabotaged over certain people who, well, they will be exposed for their double standards, like I have said, and it will be clear by then which category or factions of the Nigerian elite are in support of their useful population, of their women, and of Nigeria's development, and who are not.
Well, how do we, yes.
Listening to the Honorable Member, you will think we're in heaven with the National Assembly. I'll just have a few suggestions on that. I don't think we are. Let also the individual members of the National Assembly convene and meet with the youth leaders from their constituencies to complement what's happening at the national. Because at the national, after those meetings, everybody goes back. As individuals, he makes a good impression. He prevents good press, media opportunities. But it's about impact that lasts, that transforms, that leads to a replacement generation, and that creates value going forward. Is in that regard. It's a specific suggestion. The next suggestion is NCWS. Well, the current president, Laraba Shuda, who is my friend and colleague, that's your successor. I think, a few steps after you. I think what can happen too is for the past presidents of NCWS to consider themselves into what you might call a power center, i.e., compare notes, get together, begin to drive women issues cross-generationally, so that it's not once you cease to be president of NCWS, you have no forwarding address. That way we're losing value. It's not easy to get to the point of leading two people, not to talk of, this platform. So that's specific again. Then on national issues, we are talking about discipline at the level of national leadership. And I believe that discipline can be given substance. We have a National Holiday Act that is ignored. We need a government that will say, if your Christmas falls on a Sunday, that is it. It doesn't go to a Monday. If Salah is on Saturday, it doesn't go to a Monday or Friday. Now, putting all of that together and thinking of going forward, my submission is quite simple. 57 years. A man or a woman at 57 who has challenges is probably a retard because his or her active years are nearly gone. Fortunately, we are talking about the life of a nation. And no matter how nice it looks when we report specific achievements of governments, I mean, if you go to all past governments, the Obasanjo government performed wonderfully by its own account. Yar'Adua was exceptional. President Jonathan nobody had ever seen anything so good. If you go to the States, it's the same thing. So we're a nation that doesn't teach history. But a nation with historical record of performances, government performance, that's fundamentally fraudulent throughout. And that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, you have a nation that evolves progressively into an organized criminal enterprise where public comments on issues suggest El Dorado and where this has no impact whatsoever on the average citizen and becomes an elite conversation that is sustained. So 57 years of independence, should we disintegrate? No. It's not in the interest of any of the groups. Yes, the Southeast, whether we like it or not, is by perception and record of appointments and others and state of infrastructure is marginalized. But if you want to move out of Nigeria, where will the Igbo man find the market? In the Southeast with the small land area? A robust and very active people who are all over the world? The Southeast needs Nigeria, Nigeria needs the Southeast. That beauty of the difference we find. One of my best friends, the first place I ate to in my life was in Umuahia. Mohammed Bako was my classmate. We ate it in their house. The Seriki Yaro was his little brother. Today, Mohammed is no more. You see, also the collapse of the state is partly responsible. Now, there was the NTA Jos, and through NTA Jos and the folk tales, you found out that most of these folk tales are similar all over the country. The tortoise was always a popular character from all of them. Then the rail lines were walking. And so, whether you love geography or not, you got to know your country. All of that is gone. And so when we limit this conversation to the kind of exciting things we're talking about, in enclosures where you have 30 people or 40 in attendance, it will be in the news. Oh, we've met with Nigerian youths. Now, are we aware that many of these youths, whether student union leaders or not, also rig to become youth leaders? Are we aware that they recruit thugs? Our dear friend here is fully aware of this. So there's the crisis of a youth generation that is being denied its possibilities, and even the greater crisis of a youth generation, the bulk of which has internalized the crisis that has brought us where we are today. So when we speak of youth, let us distinguish between biological youth and generational youth. Biologically, I could be 20, but all the vices that those who are 80 have perpetrated, I may have improved on them. And I'm saying tomorrow belongs to me. It doesn't. This is the 21st century, driven by knowledge, capacity, objectivity. And when you have a growing population of young people who lack all of this, tomorrow is in trouble. So, but rather than lament it, like he said, political education, let us create opportunities that will present greater possibilities to these people. Like I said earlier, let those who claim to represent call their people. Political education does not come as a classroom engagement. All the youth leaders come from my constituency. It turns out they are 81. I say, okay, tell me what you think you want to happen in this constituency. We're going to be around for 3 days. That exchange alone has an inspirational effect. For some who were already sold on the wrong values, it could give them an opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute. Apart from collecting money, I could actually become a serious citizen, a useful person, and a leader. When you don't create that interface and you drive in with your siren, doing 140 on a village road, killing the chickens of the poor, and then you are a leader. People are also looking at you and they want to be like you. So the issue is much more variegated, but let others intervene.
All right, okay. Well, yes, as we're winding down now.
It comes to me, it has always been said that charity begins at home. It is the way we behave that people look at us like that. This Nigeria is not the name of the president or vice president of this country in any situation. It is the name of our own country. If we are patriotic, we will pray for our leaders. Time immemorial, we talk as if we are cursing the leadership. What we say can even happen to them. All they need is prayers. If we find ourselves today on that particular seat, maybe we will even do worse than they are doing now. It has always been said, when you point a finger at a person, the other four are pointing at the individual. Now this NCWS, thank you for giving us the advice, but we are on course. We have gone beyond even what you are thinking. Our national president, Mrs. Chief Gloria Larabashoda MNI, have, you know, been networking and strategizing with women groups, and we are speaking with one voice. That is why the other time I even mentioned it here, and 2 weeks after you saw the council on the screen. We don't make noise about our successes, but we are silent achievers because we are a non-governmental organization. Now, since 1999, when this EFCC was created, we have never had any conclusive result on findings of corrupt practices. We want to see, to hear what is happening. When we see our husbands, uncles, sons on the screen, we want to know what is the findings. Because if we don't have any resultant effect on these things, we won't even understand. It's like politics going on. Now, come to the corruption fight. This is a situation where we want to move forward. But Nigerians don't understand it. They are looking at it as if Mr. President and the Vice President are doing busybody. You understand? They don't seem to understand. So how do we make things work? If elites like us go about indoctrinating people up and down, it's not right. That word indoctrination is a disease. It's a disease. And let me tell you, with time, nemesis will go after us that are not telling the voiceless Nigerians down there the truth.
Right.
And I pray for us to see a Nigeria also, I mentioned it before, where African... Now, I forgot to mention, we are greatly blessed with natural gift of landmass and population. Our population is commercially and economically viable to make us thinky, to make us develop beyond what the position we are today. And it is you and I, all of us. Now, women are saying we need health insurance. That is, each person should have a card where if you walk to the hospital, especially, is it a sin for us to increase the population of this country? For us to be dying as a result of childbirth is not right. We're tired. Some years back, this idea was embraced. Why are we relapsed today? We have to continue. We are calling on our chairmen of local government and chairpersons, as the case may be, our governors and the federal government, to give us free obstetric care. Okay. And then there should be ID card for every Nigerian for all purposes.
Okay. Well.
National ID card for Nigerians.
Right. So this just where we'll be rounding up, but
finished,
not before.
Please, women appointments.
Yes.
In 2011 to 2015, we had 13 female ministers. Why should we derail? Please, we have the ideas, we have the all it takes to lead.
All right.
They should give us appointments.
Right. We'll have yes, we'll have to let you chip in now. Just as we round off, because we're running out of time on this program now. Yes.
While we romanticize the hopes that are presented by some of the feats that are being achieved at especially the National Assembly, giving young people greater opportunities to run for elections and reducing the age by which young people can aspire to run for election. I think that in itself doesn't really tackle the core issue. And for me, the core issue borders on party financing. A young person who aspires to be councillor, who aspires to be chairman or even House of Rep, member of the House of Rep, knows the financial burden it takes to run for one position. And we have a...
To get nomination
to even get the nomination form. We have a system, a political system that has been choked with money. And for every step you take, money must exchange hands. I think that is an issue we need to look at. We need to look at a party system, a political system where money is not the central focus. But importantly, I should say that Nigerians have to come at this point and unite. And we need to stop looking at our differences. While we may not discountenance them, we should appreciate them and understand them, that each person has something he's bringing or she is bringing to the table. I'll make allusion to the Tower of Babel, where the biblical story of the Tower of Babel, where humanity said they were going to unite to build a tower. And they did so until God now had to come in and say that if we are going to let these people have come and they are united in one, and for that fact that they are united, nothing is impossible for them. If Nigerians can come together, support good leadership, nothing will be impossible for us to achieve.
Okay, well, it's this point we would have to leave this conversation and thank all our guests who have been here, and hope that at some other point we'll pursue other aspects of why Nigeria is still searching for that ingredient of nationhood after 57 years of independence. But for now, we'll say thank you to all our guests. Let's start off by saying a big thank you to Senator Olabi Durojai, who joined us from our Lagos Network Center. Senator Durojai, it's been nice having you with us on this conversation. We thank you for availing us of your time.
Very much indeed.
Thank you very much, sir. And back here in Abuja, say thank you to Representative Sani Zoro. Thank you for coming on this program.
Thank you very much indeed.
Dr. Uke Ikechukwu, it's always a pleasure to have you on this forum.
Thank you very much.
Right, and for... we thank you for being here once again. We always enjoy your contributions.
You're welcome.
And also thank you to
my pleasure.
Johan. Thank you very much. And we say thank you to you also for being part of this conversation. Next week we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.
Have a wonderful life. Do you have questions or contributions around this topic? Then send them ahead of time via our social media channels and expect detailed answers this Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. only on NTA.
Music of my childhood was completely British and American.
So my signature tune is pretty much
Robbers, they rob, they no see you, brother.
And like you said, I'm robbers, rob, they no see you. They no see me, my brother. It happened to me.
Many, many months and many years don't come and go.
Baba God, we say thank you.
To
Music is the way that the whole world can connect.
Sometimes music goes with comedy. I love music.
Let the love for music keep burning in you.
Music and Art, a must watch.
Well, there's no substitute for democracy, particularly in a multi-national, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and multi-linguistic society like ours.
They were all well-educated professionals who were doing something from which they were deriving their livelihood. They never looked at politics as a means of survival.
People like us, like me, because I'm about of the ministers of the First Republic, there are only two of us alive in the world today. Only Shagari and myself.
We lifted ban on politics and invited interested people to come and campaign for various offices.
Our Nigeria, showing on the network service of the NTA on 1st October.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Dancers perform is in Nasarawa Egon local government area of Nasarawa State. The local government area covers about 1,208 square kilometers of arable land laden with solid minerals and aquamarine. Topaz, quartz, halidon, and gemstones are deposits around here. The people are predominantly farmers and hunters. Only a few ventured into mining recently. Their major food is tuwo. No wonder the dancers are so energetic. Their stocks could be found in Kaduna and Benue states.
This bass drum membrane could only be the skin of a 40-year-old goat.
The Anzalu dance, I inherited this from my parents, who also inherited from their parents as well. So it is an age-long tradition. The major function of this drum is, it is of course the mother of all drums. because when somebody hits this drum, it tells you that everybody will be interested to be in. And before you know it, people are motivated. They get dancing immediately. We are highly selective in getting the materials to make this drum as it is. The main thing we use, basically we have a special tree which is called dinya in Hausa, which we also call it like that. That is what gives us the main body of it. It's a very strong tree that we use in doing that. After carving the inside, we now look for the skin of a goat that is highly matured, which should be about 40 years. And the essence of looking for a matured goat is to make it very strong and it lasts very long. You can use this drum for many years, from 2-3 years and above, because of the nature of the skin. So we have to look for a very mature goat to have this. And then the other part of it, you can see around the drum you have some threads. So the thread we use is also very strong. And behind the drum there is another skin. That one that is behind is usually a skin gotten from a cow. So we use it, we mix it with oil, and then we use also nails to now bore holes in it and keep it there. So it keeps it very strong. Two sides of the drum are covered. The essence is to give it the sweet sound that we need. Because if you cover only one side and you hit the drum, the sound of the drum will just go away and then it will not be as sweet as it is. So it is stick we use in hitting the drum, particularly for any of us who uses the stick. It is not just bent for ordinary reason. One, it makes the drum sweeter. It now makes the drum to also last longer, because if you use a stick that is straight, it makes it easier for the skin to get weakened and then it tears it.
The twin drums are sacred and have a secret.
I got this thing from my father. It is an inheritance. It is very necessary that you have the two together, because when you hit the bigger one of the two, you hit the smaller, it gives you variety. And they say variety is the spice of life. Of course, when you have things that are varied, you enjoy them. The drums you are seeing here are very special, and they are special for the Igbo people. One, you should know that it is not the skin we use here, or the skin I use in preparing this is not an ordinary goat skin. I use hyena skin in doing it. And then inside it, I will not reveal to you what I put, but there are things that are secret to us inside the drums that once I hit, they answer. And you can see the top, the bigger and the smaller one. We call them the males and females. So when we hit the two, the males come out and the females also come out because of the variety of the sound. In fact, it is something people enjoy.
The flute carries a message for the dancer, besides emphasizing on the melody of the music.
In relation to the Anzalu dance, it is only after the blowing of the flute that the drumming and dancing commences. It is also used during the rainy season, especially when we plant our crops and they have grown. When we see birds eating our millet in the farms, we blow it. Once we blow it, it now pushes the birds away. The flute, it contains 4 holes. Well, if you make it 3, it will still work, but make it 6 and see, it will not work for you. And if you bore only 2 holes, it will not work, because it has to do with expertise. You blow some aspects of the hole and release the other side.